Welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast, and I'm totally pumped up today because I've got a fellow entrepreneur who is just doing some amazing stuff in the world. Stacey Brown Randall has one focus in life: to help business owners avoid business failure. Failure, what's that? She knows, she's been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. What Stacey learned when her first business failed, and through years of researching successful business owners, is now what is making all the difference with her current business success. And she is sharing all of her secrets. Her online programs and live coaching provide a blueprint for solopreneurs and small business owners to follow to take control of their referrals, clients, business, and days. I can use that. She is a 3-time entrepreneur, certified productivity and time efficiency coach, has a background in sales and marketing, is an adjunct professor and aspiring author. Stacey received her master's in organizational communication and is married with 2 kids, an 8-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. She and her husband also welcomed the newest member to their family a year ago, as they have the privilege of raising their 8-year-old nephew. Oh yeah, and she grammatically edits all her text messages, organizes her kitchen junk drawer, and more likely to say to you guys, or say you guys instead of y'all, despite being raised in the South. Let's ask her why. Stacey, welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast.
Thank you, Rick, so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
So this is some bio you got, and when I saw it, I was like, this sounds like a very well put together young lady. So tell us, what was the failure that got you started, going toward this direction you're in now?
Right, absolutely. It's a great question. It's a great story. So my first company that I started, it was a number of years ago, and it was an HR consulting firm. And I ran that business for a couple of years and had clients like KPMG, Coca-Cola, Snyder's Lance, the City of Charlotte, BDO USA, some big name clients as a consultant. And in reality, from the outside looking in, I had white papers published, and I was interviewed in Bloomberg News and had articles and some trade publications in the HR space. And my areas of expertise were employee engagement and then also generational diversity. And so when you looked at my company from the outside in, you would have thought I had it going on. Like I had it all together. My company was doing great. And then the reality, my company was barely making ends meet. It was barely, actually at that time I was also getting my master's, and it was barely putting me through grad school, let alone supplying any income for our family. And so when I finally recognized the fact that this business wasn't going to be successful and that it was failing, a very slow death because I didn't want to admit it, I'm not one to not go through an experience and not try to learn something. That's a little bit about who I am. I kind of have a growth mindset mentality. And so my big focus was like, okay, this business failed. And I looked at it. What did I do wrong? I kind of call it my 3 secrets learned from business failure. But I kind of paid attention to what did I do wrong? What are other people doing that made this right? And then I had to go get a job. And I always told myself, if I go back out on my own and I have that chance again, I'm going to do some things different. And different, I am doing them now. And that's, of course, making all the difference.
Wow. And how long was that job that you had to go back to?
I almost lasted 2 years.
Okay. Well, that's
It was a good company. There's nothing bad to say about the company, but when you have that job where you get to work in the morning and you're walking into the lobby and you literally say to yourself, how did I get here today? Yeah. Like, I don't remember my commute.
Wow.
Because you're just not in a place where you want to be, and you're not happy, and you're not with it.
Wow.
I had too many mornings of that, and I knew that nothing wrong with the company again, but wasn't right for me, and I wanted to go back out on my own.
Yeah, and so that's a great point to just kind of stop and talk to the audience and say, if you are listening or watching today, let's just stop right here. If you are driving a car or walking into a lobby or a hall or an elevator, and you are feeling like Stacey just said, please do me a favor, click on the link and talk to her after this show and just get the information from someone who was there. Because I've been there, and so many of my entrepreneurial friends, clients, and collaborative partners have been there, and it is the worst feeling in the world. And basically, and you shouldn't be spending your life in doing something you don't want to do, and you shouldn't be doing that to the people that are hiring you to do it.
Right.
So we really owe it not only to ourselves and our families, but to people who are paying us. And so really, you know what? It's not the end of the world if you leave that job. I am encouraging people today to take a big leap. That's what we're all about on this show. And so talk about now when you finally left the job. Okay, almost 2 years you lasted, which is kind of like my amount of time I could stand working for someone else. Maybe not now probably. But so tell me what did you do the second time now? Because you knew you couldn't really fail totally this second time. What did you do differently?
Right. Well, it's funny. The day I left that corporate job, I actually asked the person who was kind of like the office manager if I could take the nameplate from my office door.
Oh.
It said, Stacey Brown Randall, Chief Talent Officer. And I asked, I was like, can I take that with me? And she looked at me funny, and she was like, okay. And so I have it, and I actually have it. It sits at the top of my door frame in my office here.
Okay.
And it's just a reminder when I'm not doing what I need to do to be successful, it's that swift kick.
Yeah.
And the high knee that I sometimes need. And I think that all of us need. But so I went to work for a company. I'm really good about learning from my mistakes and keeping my eyes open for future opportunities. I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I don't believe entrepreneurs are born by any means. I think that anyone can become one if they want to do the work.
Good
but
news.
I am surrounded by them.
Okay.
I mean, I sit at Thanksgiving table and I've got aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents and my brother and my husband, and we're just like a family of entrepreneurs. There's very few people who work for somebody else in our family. So I knew I needed to do it again. I knew that being an entrepreneur again was going to be important, but I didn't know what it looked like. So while I was working in my corporate job, I got certified as a productivity and time efficiency coach, and I started coaching internally. And I also worked at a financial services firm. So I watched how they would bring people in and attempt to train them to get them prepared to be a financial advisor.
Okay.
Which is like the hardest job in the world. And I paid attention to how are they launching these entrepreneurs and getting them prepared. And I noticed gaps of why people were succeeding and why they weren't. I'm really good at connecting dots. And so I have this coaching certification. I'm paying attention to how people are being successful. I know some of them won't be successful because they're doing the same thing I did with my first failed business. Yep. And I kind of put all those pieces together. And when I left again and went back out on my own, I became a coach. And I was really focused on productivity using that certification. And then it was probably a handful of months into coaching, my coaching practice was starting to take over and get busy, and I was like, I can make money at this. I remember I was like at the 7-month mark and I surpassed my corporate income, and I was like, yes, this one's different. I can do this. There were a couple of pieces I was putting into place that I think really mattered, and one of them is that I was looking at the business all different, and I was making sure I was doing the things I didn't want to do in my first business and doing them this time around. And so I really think when I went back out on my own and I was coaching, I had clients say, hey, Stacey, I've been working with you for a while, and it used to be really easy to get on your schedule. Yeah. I could just pick whenever time I wanted to coach with you. And now you're like, I have available first and third Tuesdays at 3 or second and fourth Thursdays at 9. Like all of a sudden I'm being pigeonholed. What's going on? And I'm like, business is exploding. And so the people I was doing productivity coaching with, even though I was always focused on solopreneurs, they were saying, well, what are you doing that makes business explode? And I started walking them through like my referral process, my opinions of my sales and marketing strategy, touching business development every day. And they're like, can you coach me on that too?
Wow.
And that is literally where I am today, helping solopreneurs and small business owners. And I really tell them, like, we're going to make you some more money, and we're going to find you some more time.
Okay, so all of this sounds great. But how do we get up every day and do the things that you tell us to do? Because I find my clients, especially my entrepreneurial clients, they know exactly what to do. They have a list in front of them. They have a box next to it to check off, and at 5 o'clock, 7 out of the 8 things are not checked because something came up. So how do we, of freedom, too much freedom sometimes, get ourselves to do the things that we used to do when we were accountable to a boss or a paycheck, when we don't have anybody pushing us anymore?
Isn't it fascinating in reality that people need what I refer to as real control, a boss getting fired, to actually make us do things?
Yeah.
Like, it's fascinating. I was actually working with a client yesterday, and I asked him, he's just not excelling in the way that he wants to excel with his business. And I asked him, I was like, here's the thing. I was like, tell me about a time when you did excel. Tell me about a time when you did get things done that were on your to-do list. And he was like, when I had a job. And I was like, okay, why? And he goes, I guess because I had a boss that was a micromanager, and I kind of was afraid that one day I could get fired if I didn't do my job. So I did my job. I was like, the problem with being an entrepreneur is that we then apply artificial control and artificial, constraints and boundaries on our time to make us do things. But we know in our head it's artificial.
Yeah.
And so the question always comes down to, that I always work with my clients on, is, do you want to go get a job? No. Why not? And then it's constantly reminding them of that, and then helping them figure out how to remind themselves of that. Mine happens to be the nameplate that I took from my old corporate job. I don't ever want to go back there. So, or not to that company, but just back to a company in general. I don't want to work for somebody else again. And so you have to be willing to find the driving force inside you that kind of propels you forward. But here's the thing. That's the overall reason why you get up every day and do what you do. But in the moment of, I could go grab a beer with a buddy, do some laundry, or do that work I need to do, you have to be able to call yourself in the moment on your choices and decide every choice has a consequence. Which one are you willing to live with today?
Okay, I have two good examples that are really going to be, an opportunity for you to share your wisdom.
Okay.
One is the typical mompreneur. Okay,
Yes.
So this is a young lady who has some children. Her significant other or husband or partner or some other way she has income so that her bills are paid. She doesn't have to worry about her money being the only money that's covering things. And so during the day, all these things come up in her life that just kind of take her off that path of moving those boulders in her own business. So if it's a kid who needs her, or some task that needs to be done, or because she's working at home, she just kind of sees something and goes at it. And because she's got a creative rebel instinct, she'll go off the track for a minute. Next thing you know, it's 5:30, and then the family's gathering for dinner or whatever, and then it's the nighttime shift, because she's got 3 shifts. And so how do you get that young lady, whether she has a nameplate or not, all these other things are calling out to her and taking up her time, and she really feels like her business is important, but it's just never important enough because her money doesn't depend on it. And, that's a typical case in my world.
And so, it is for actually some of my clients as well, right? It's that person who, they don't have to work. They're choosing to work. They're choosing to have a company. And, so I always call, there are the mental strategies, and then there are the tactical action-based strategies.
Okay.
And you really have to have both to make the decision at 3:00 in the afternoon when you're thinking you have an hour before the kids get home from school. You have 4 things left on your to-do list, but you could go start dinner, or you could go do the laundry.
Yeah.
Like legitimate things. Dinner needs to
Yeah.
get cooked, laundry needs to get washed, work needs to get done. And so I always tell my clients, it's that mental ability. So talk mental for a second, and then let me get into like the tactical, practical application. The mental stuff is are you willing to stop in the minute and ask yourself the question, is this what I should be doing right now? As you move towards dinner, as you move towards the laundry, asking yourself that question. So that's the first step, because the more you ask yourself that question, the less you need to, and you start making different choices.
Okay.
It's what it looks like to build a habit, right? But the tactical piece that we also need to recognize is that we have to understand our energy flow. And I used to work from home, and one of the smartest things I did with this business is I got office space. Once I financially could afford it, I got office space because I knew I needed a place to come.
Good idea.
Because with 3 kids at home, and my husband owns 2 companies, and I've got a company, and there's just stuff happening, and I happen to live on an amazing street full of stay-at-home moms.
Yeah.
So they're always around, and I
Yeah.
could always go hang out with somebody.
Hey,
Right?
Stacy!
What's up? Yeah. Let's go grab a beer at 2 in the afternoon. Yes,
Yep.
I would love a Corona. Thank you.
Yep.
So, office space was important for me, but for the person working at home, I can remember distinctly being in that place of wanting to go do something else that wasn't really beneficial. And so I always tell clients, know your energy. I really start to go brain dead by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The worst thing you can ask me to do is try to work on something that is creative or takes cognitive ability on any level late in the afternoon. So I would tell, some of my clients working from home, get up, get the kids out the door, get your work done, and then if you're going to allow your day to unfold the way you want it to unfold, so be it, if you don't have a full 8 hours to put in today. But don't ever leave work for the end part of the day, because you won't get to it. You can't let yourself do that. But Rick, the big thing I always notice is this is a desire thing.
Yeah.
Like I tell my clients all the time, I can give you all the strategies, I can give you all the tools, I can tell you what to say to yourself. But if you're not going to do it, you've got to recognize why you're being lazy and why you're procrastinating. And maybe you don't love your business, or maybe there's a piece of it that you don't care about, or maybe it's not any of those things. But we have to unpack those so I can get you to a place where you're actually willing to make action and steps forward happen.
Now, how far are you willing to go in terms of being one of your clients' accountability coaches?
So most of my clients see me twice a month, and then they have access to me in between sessions. Mm-hmm. And then they always have homework when they leave a session. So if they're, reaching back out, like say, here's my homework, I did it, then of course that's always something that I offer. What I'm not is their mother or their wife, okay. And so, or their sister. Okay. So I don't nag, and if you have something due to me and you don't do it, you're going to get the as my clients say, the look. Yeah. When you come back in for your next session. But I also do something that's not sanctioned by any coaching federation around that works wonders. I'll say it works better for my male clients than it does for my female clients, is I have actually my clients place bets with me. Okay. If they're trying to get something done in their business and they keep dragging their feet, I'll say, okay, let's set a deadline.
Wow, I'd be rich.
It's funny. I don't always win them. I do find that if I make them painful enough for my clients, they get the work done. Okay. But so one client, he had 6 months of expense reports. He hadn't actually put into the system that he owned the company, but he still needed to get his expense reports in. Yeah. And he was 6 months behind. And I said, let's make it. I said, when do you want this done? June 30th. Great. Let's create a habit where every week you're going to do so many. And by June 30th, you'll be done. And if you're not, you owe me 10% of the amount for those 6 months.
Wow.
I would have made a lot of money if he had not had it done. But what happened was he had weeks of the habit of getting it into process. He had it done by June 30th, and we had built a new habit. Wow. All because he didn't want to pay me 10%.
Cool. Yeah. So he liked money, and he also didn't like to lose.
Exactly. I have other clients. I'm like, hey, if you can't get your website built by X date, then you keep saying you need to do it, and it's not your it's not your developer's fault, it's your fault. I was like, hey, if you don't have it done by X date, as long as they agree to that date, I'll say, you're going to send my husband and I to dinner, and we like to go to nice places. Okay. So and I need you to pay for the babysitter. So cool. It's funny. Yeah. Some of my clients have lost and they have paid for it. Not most of my clients don't lose, but it's that action I'm trying to get them to take that I try to build from. I
love that. Okay, so here's one for the guys now.
Yes.
So I have a lot of male clients, and the entrepreneurs will work too much. So now what they're doing is they're dedicated. They are actually married to the company. This baby, this chosen new woman, we call it, because they want to make sure this thing takes off and it works. And so they believe that they have to put every waking and sleeping moment into this entity, and it's at the expense of their relationships with their wives and kids and pets and even the other people in their lives. So how do we help that guy who is working too much on his business?
So this happens a lot with my clients as well. And there is one activity I always do with my clients early on in our coaching together, and that's called the Bullseye. And the Bullseye activity is one where we sit down and we identify, if you think about the Target logo or an actual bullseye in darts, right? Yep. So you've got the center, and then you have a ring outside of that, and then a ring outside of that. So basically a center circle and two rings. The center ring is your bullseye. Those are the tasks and projects that you do that are the highest return on investment. Said another way, those are the tasks that you do that keep you closest to the money. Okay. So it's identifying what's our bullseye. The next ring is referred to as semi-important, and the ring outside of that is referred to as not as important. And we go through the process and we put all the things that they do into a bullseye. And if they have employees, we have their employees do it as well. And so what I have found is that when I can get someone to understand where they need to be spending their time and what they need to be focusing on, I can go to that outer ring, that not as important ring, and I can start applying what I call the EDAO lens, which is what can I eliminate, delegate, automate, or optimize, EDAO, and take away from that outer ring and to take off their plate so that they're only spending time in semi-important and the bullseye. And then we plan those things out. And I show folks, most of the time when I have a client that's working all hours of the day, it's because they're just really bad at managing their own time. Yeah. They give in to distractions and interruptions, right? And when it's time to do something, they don't wanna, so they procrastinate and they just say, I'll do it later, which is why they're working at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. So we have to unpack some of those pieces. A good place to start is the bullseye activity, because it gives us a place to speak from. It gives us language to talk through about what's important, what's not, where should we spend our time, where should we not.
Wow. Amazing. 2 golden, not even nuggets, they're boulders. Good job, Stacey. That was one for the ladies, one for the men. Dynamite stuff. So talk a little bit about how people can work with you and get access to this good stuff themselves.
Absolutely. Well, so obviously they can find me on my website. I'm at StaceyBrownRandall.com. It's Stacey is spelled with an E, so Stacey, Brown like the color, and then Randall, Randall.com. They can certainly find me on my website. They can see I've got a couple of programs that I do. Take control of your referrals, take control of your business, take control of your day. And that shows you the different types of, I do retreats, I do coaching, I do workshops, as well as, of course, the one-on-one coaching. And then I have an online program. And I always tell my clients, when you decide to work with a coach, find one that works for you, but find one who can actually speak to what your needs are, right? So I tell most of my clients come to me because, hey, they're like, I need sales to work better. Yes, I need help with time management and things like that, but I need sales to work better. And I actually have an entire program around, let's get you referrals in your business, because you don't work as hard when you get business through referrals. Yeah. And you should never ask for a referral. So let me show you how to do that. And so if folks are on the website and they go to that place for the take control of your referrals, they'll learn more about how to really do something that's online. So if someone's not interested in a coach and they don't want to talk about coaching with me, I also have my online program as well.
Well, that sounds exciting. So I'm just going to cover that again, because that sounds like a great piece for all the entrepreneurs out there. So if you are not ready to get a coach, or you've already had a bunch and you don't want to have another one, you have an online program that can help them get referrals without asking for them.
Correct.
Oh, that's dynamite. Okay, so that's that one. We are gonna leave on that note. We're gonna put links in the show notes for that specifically, as well as your website and all your other goodies. Stacey, this was so much fun. I am so glad we got to meet today and have this wonderful meeting.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It was great.
Yeah, dynamite. Talk to you soon.